Hello, heathens! I'm Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. In this weekly audio ritual, we explore the 8 seasons of the witch's wheel of the year, and we discover how it is so much more than 8 Sabbats. We weirding witches time travel through holy days, festivals, and celestial events connecting our celebrations and magic to the past, present, and future. Our cackling fills the night as we take our turn gathering the wool, wielding the distaff, and spinning the wheel. And welcome back to Spinning the Wheel podcast. Or if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Megan Angus, and I am a lady on the internet yelling at you about witchcraft and stuff. So strap in because this is what it's all about. All right. As usual, before we get started, I've always got a preamble. I've always got stuff before the stuff. This is Mabon season, or fall equinox season, full moon in Aries. Lunar week 35 is where we are in ye old podcast calendar. Lunar week 35 by some lunar calendars, because of course we just had several significant New Year's celebrations with our Jewish friends and ancestors. Our Hindu friends and ancestors both just celebrated a big New Year's. So it's not Lunar week 35 for those cats, but it is Lunar week 35 for many of the other lunar calendar based cultures around the planet. Okay. Thanks for coming back. It's lovely to see you. How have you been? Hope you're doing good. World's a little wild these days, huh? Mercury went direct, didn't seem to kind of really make a difference. And I'll be honest with you, I've sort of felt this way since 2015. So there was one particular Mercury retrograde, and I was like, we never came back. We never went direct after that. We've kind of been off the reels ever since. I blame the Hadron Collider. I'm just trying to keep it scientific, honestly. But anyways, here we are in the midst of the chaos, figuratively and literally. We've got a very interesting collection of holy days to look at in this week. And we have some interesting astrology. Some is a little frustrating. Some is actually helpful for a change. We've had a lot of tough astrology in the last several weeks. We actually have a little bit of helpful astrology this week. So let's just get into it. Well, before we get into it, actually, let me give you a little preamble about some things that are happening in my world that I would love to have you join me from. Ongoing. Throughout the month of October, I am working with the esteemed artist and tattoo expert. She's going to kill me for calling her that. Jessica Henry, out of Lilith Tattoo here in Seattle, Washington, on a month long. I know what I'm doing. Okay, look, I'm a professional and I know what I'm doing. Jessica Henry, Lilith Tattoo, also an artist, doing things this month with me on Instagram for a month-long challenge that's sort of our version of Inktober 2022 or Folktober, where we are drawing and writing about a different North American cryptid or mysterious creature or fearsome critter, as they are called here in the United States and North America, all month long, new one every day. Come and join us over on Instagram. You can find all of our illustrations and writing under the hashtag something cryptid this way comes. It's been really, really fun. It's been very exciting that some other folks have joined in with us. If you are moved to create anything, please do and share it under the hashtag. We would love to see your creations. If you feel like doing one or two or several or all of them, awesome. We're excited for whatever it is that you are creating. She's doing the art. I'm writing the captions. And it's been really, really fun to do this research on a lot of these mysterious creatures, some of which I was very familiar with. Some of them I was not familiar with until I read their story coming up with the list that we were going to work on throughout the month. And yeah, it's been a ton of fun. Man, people have made some awesome stuff. People have had really cool interpretations of these ideas and these creatures and their histories and myths. And it's just been a ton of fun. And we're only 1 week into the challenge. So I'm very excited for the next 3 weeks of art and other fabulous creations that people come up with. So please come and join us over on Instagram. Something Cryptid This Way Comes. This is our October 2022 Art and Writing Challenge. Okay. What else is going on? October 12th is going to be our next tarot circle. This is going to be focused on the major arcana card, the Tower. And nothing can go wrong. Oh no, it all went wrong. Okay, Tarot Circle is open to all of my patrons. You can sign up for my Patreon for a measly $1 a month. And folks who are attending tarot workshops this month are also welcome to attend the Tarot Circle. This month's class is going to be a more intense lecture on this card with hopefully some time for question and answer at the end. And recordings of this lecture will be available to all of my patrons who are subscribed at the Venus level and higher. Moving through the month to October 25th, will be our first of 5 standalone tarot workshops. This is the Fool's Journey, a magical trip through the major arcana. We are going to be taking a deep dive into the symbolism of the major arcana. We will look at how the cards relate to each other to build a magical pathway that we can walk through the major arcana to develop a deeper understanding of the individual cards. And we will also look at other magical pathways through the major arcana that provide several opportunities to explore the esoteric meaning behind these cards, pointing in a bunch of different directions. It's fun. I love teaching this workshop. It's a real trip. This is also going to be our new moon in Scorpio / eclipse. So am I teaching a tarot class on the Fool and the major arcana on an eclipse and a Scorpio new moon? You're goddamn right I am. Why? Because I'm a Sagittarius, Aries rising. I'm gonzo, baby. I fear no gods. That's not true. I do. I fear gods. But I'm doing it anyways. Because I'm unhinged. I can't be stopped. So I thought about changing the date on this class, and then I was like, no, I don't think so. We're doing it. So hopefully my computer doesn't blow up. All right. October 27th is our next Wheel of the Year class. And this is, of course, for probably the most popular Sabbath known by folks outside of paganism, Samhain. This is a 6-week guide to Witch's New Year, aka the Third Harvest, aka the Blood Harvest, aka a bunch of other names because it has a bunch of other names. This is our next stop on the wheel, which is New Year, probably the most well-known of the Sabbats. Samhain is also the Sabbath most widely celebrated by pagans and non-pagans alike. This class will be a live stream on YouTube. This class is free and available to attend by all beings on Earth and beyond. I don't know how far YouTube projects out into the universe, but whoever wants to join us, you're welcome to. And then there is a 20-page workbook, the calendar for Samhain, which is where we get all of our holy days that we talk about here on the podcast. The workbook is jam-packed full of all kinds of stuff and more. There's playlists and digital spells and all sorts of things that I throw into the folder for my patrons, again, who are subbed at the Venus level and higher, recording of the class as well, etc., all of that good stuff. Please join us. I'm stoked. I've been teaching these as Zoom classes for the last couple of classes because my tech kind of took a crap there, but I think, figured out what was going wrong, and I've fixed my stuff. So we're going to be back to the fancier layout for these classes. And then on October 31st, the actual night of Samhain, I and several friends of mine and compatriots and cohorts will be conducting a procession for the dead. For the last 2 years since COVID began, I and a small troop of friends have gathered together on Capitol Hill here in Seattle to form a procession for the dead. We have kept it small on purpose, but this year we are going to be opening this up to more folks. I wanted to invite you. If you're listening to this and you're in the Seattle area and you would like to join us, we would love to have you. The basic details are this: one, please be vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, please don't attend. Straight up. That's it. That's the whole thing. Two, please test before you attend. So, literally earlier that day, take a test before you come to this procession, and please stay masked up the entire time. We're not trying to add to the numbers. Just going to be really frank about that. Is that super morbid? Yeah, it is, because people are still dying left and right from COVID, and I don't want to be one of them, and I don't want this to be a super spreader event. So there you go. All right, beyond that, here are the basic deets. This procession is meant to honor the dead who have passed in this massive worldwide event, as well as folks who have died through the oppressive forces of the Kyriarchy. It is not a strictly mournful event, but we do lean more to the unsettling versus the celebratory, though there is a little celebratory energy in there as well. And we do get a little rowdy sometimes. But we encourage folks to dress in ceremonial attire, whatever that means to you. So, not necessarily your regular old Halloween costume, something that's a little bit more on purpose, a little bit more serious, a little bit more spiritual for you. And, or you can dress in all black or all white in any style, whatever you want to wear. Jeans and a t-shirt, a jogging suit, whatever, just all black or all white. Keep in mind, obviously, your comfort. Keep in mind the weather. Keep in mind masking. This is a walking procession. It's about 2-ish miles, maybe 3 miles. It's about 2-ish hours. We don't go very fast. We try to pick routes that are as accessible as possible so that all mobility types are welcome to join us. And we do carry lanterns and candles and flags and things like that. So please feel free to bring something along those lines. Noisemakers and instruments are also totally appropriate. We try to get the procession started by 6:30 in the evening. And like I said, it lasts about 2 hours. So it's over relatively early, so if it's a school night for you or work night, we're going to get you home early. Or if you're going to a party afterwards, there's still plenty of time to get to your party. I'll have a little bit more information, but hit me up on Instagram or send me an email if you are curious about this. We would love to have you join us. Haven't, like I said, talked about it too much in the past. We definitely are opening it up to more people this year. I'm a little nervous about that, but I'm mostly excited about it. So just please come with the right attitude. That's all we really ask for this, but truly any and all are welcome to attend. Just be in the mood for carrying the energy of, the several 100,000 people / millions of people who have died over the last couple of years due to COVID, police brutality, war, just little things like that. 'Tis the season, right? It's witchcraft, people. You knew it was going to get messy. Okay, so that, for the most part, is the preamble to the class, I think. Yeah, or to the podcast. What am I doing? Yeah. I'm doing a podcast right now. That's right. That's pretty much what we've got going on this month. I'll talk more about that stuff as we get closer. Let's ground ourselves in Mabon season, because that is, in fact, the portion of the wheel that we are currently working. Mabon, of course, also known as fall equinox, also known as witches' Thanksgiving or second harvest, fruit harvest, Ishtar's Day, the Feast of Avalon, Michaelmas, etc., etc. Our major themes for our witches' work that we are doing in this portion of the wheel center around harvest, health, purification, and transition. And we as we move through this portion of the wheel, we are going to see just so many holy days focused on, past and present, I should say, focused on these major themes. And they really kind of weave and thread together. There isn't a linear path through this stuff. We might be doing, purification and atoning work at one point, and then focusing back on harvesting work the next week, and then a week focused on health, and then a week focused on transition and changing from light into dark, and on and on, because our spiritual work is not, it doesn't follow a linear path. Time is a flat wheel anyways, right? So we're all in it. We're all in the mix of stuff here. So with that, let's get into our holy days that we are talking about this week. I'm not going to talk about every single holy day that we have this week. I'm going to talk about a few clusters of holy days. So we're going to bounce around through our week a little bit, but it'll stick with me. All right. Our lunar week, which runs from October 9th to October 16th, is kicking off with a big and wacky full moon in Aries. I'm going to talk about the full moon and the rest of the astrology for this week deeper into the podcast. We're going to talk about our holy days first and foremost. But that's important, that full moon, because we have a lot of holidays that line up with this full moon. First and foremost, Sukkot from our Jewish friends and ancestors, running from October 9th to October 16th. This is sometimes called the Feast of the Tabernacles, or the Festival of Shelters. And this is a part of the New Year's, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, etc., festival complex that happens at the beginning of Jewish New Year. And in this festival, there is a real celebration of harvest. There's a real celebration of family. And one of the key elements of this festival, or this particular holiday, is the building of a shelter where folks will live outside for the week, or at the very least, they go and they eat their meals in this outdoor shelter for the week. And this outdoor shelter symbolizes a bunch of stuff. It symbolizes some of the hardships that Jewish folks went through in this great festival complex and observance moment for them in their belief system. But it also connects to the harvest itself and being able to build a shelter out of all of this stuff that is being harvested from the earth. And in alignment with that, we have from our Hindu friends and ancestors, Sharad Purnima, which is also a harvest festival connected to this full moon. And interestingly enough, this particular harvest festival also marks the end of monsoon season, and it also is an auspicious day for a lot of the divine pairs in Hinduism, like Radha Krishna, Shiva Parvati, etc., etc. And so a lot of those married couples or those divine couples in Hinduism are also honored at this juncture, at this festival, which sits very nicely with our Libra symbolism. So Sharad Purnima connecting to a lot of really important stuff. Looking further, and this is all October 9th, from our Catholic friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of St. Dionysus. This is, of course, Dionysus, the deity. So again, with wine and grape and festival harvest moment celebration. And then from our Armenian friends and ancestors, we also have another harvest festival. So harvest festivals still kicking, still happening, still a big deal here, even though we are way, a week plus into October. And I don't know where you are, but we're still having 70-degree days up here in Seattle, of all places. So the cold weather has not hit yet. So Yes, the harvest festivals are absolutely still happening. And kind of rounding out our harvest festivals, we have wait, digging through my notes again. Here I am, digging through my notes one more time. We have, no, that might be everything. Oh, no, duh, of course. On August 16th, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Spica. And this is a fixed star that is found in the constellation of Virgo, and it represents the ear of wheat that Virgin or Virgo is holding in their other hand. They're holding grapes in one hand and grain in the other hand. Spica is also one of the 15 Behenian fixed stars. No time to get into that, but the Behenian fixed stars are a big deal for folks that do stellar magic, planetary magic, fixed star astrology, all of that good stuff. Okay, what else do we have going on this week? Rolling back to the beginning of the week, from October 9th to 11th, from our pagan friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of Goddesses of Wisdom. This is one of the fixed dates that we find on modern Wheel of the Year calendars. And it's basically an approximation of a lot of these other holidays that we are talking about that sort of thread throughout this season. Now, if you've been working with me, you know this, but in Mabon season, in fall equinox season, there is obviously a huge emphasis on harvest, right? We just covered a whole bunch of harvest festivals. We are seeing here in the Northern Hemisphere the massive fruit and veg harvest kind of come to fruition. And that is a lot of our symbolism that we're working with at this time of year. But also, a more subtle form that comes through is goddesses as the embodiment of enlightenment or wisdom, as proved by all this stuff that they're producing in the world. We have goddess as mother or goddess as producer, but also goddess as the wisdom to know how to do that stuff, either to be the producer or to oversee and assist. So we have this Feast of Goddesses of Wisdom from our modern pagan friends and ancestors. And these are goddesses like Sophia from our Catholic and Christian friends, Ma'at from our Egyptian ancestors, Metis from our Greek friends and ancestors, Saraswati from our Hindu friends and ancestors, Manat from our Arabic and Sufi friends and ancestors, as just an incredibly short list of all of the beings that we could possibly be working with. This is a huge part of the other elements within Virgo. Virgo is really thought of as the virgin and the maiden. And sometimes people dig deeper into the ideas behind Virgo and they see this mother goddess energy there because of this massive harvest. But if we push even deeper in, we know that Virgo is connected to the tarot card, the Hermit. So there is this massive embodiment of wisdom, personal wisdom, and sort of this quiet knowing that's embodied within this archetype. So, in alignment with this, also here on October 9th, from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have, or excuse me, from our Greek friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of the Heroines. Um, from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have the Dies Natalis for a temple dedicated to the Dii Penates, which are the house spirits. And actually, I'm getting a little afield here. See, I see all of these things sort of blended together. So let me bring it back a little bit. Um, I'm going to talk about these two holy days again here in just a second, but I'm going to skip through the week a little bit. So October 12th, we have the Feast of the Virgin of the Pillar from our Catholic friends and ancestors. From our pagan and Catholic friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of Our Lady of Aparecida, which is a Black Madonna that comes up at this time of year. From our Catholic friends and ancestors on October 13th, we have the last sighting of Our Lady of Fatima. On what else do we have this month or this week? No, that's everything. That's all that I want to talk about for Lady Days, basically. So these are all holidays that are sort of dedicated to the idea of the Virgin, but knowing that the Virgin, is self-knowing and self-possessed before anything else, right? Okay. So, what I was starting to get off on is another really interesting thread of holidays that runs through this week. But before I get into those, I talk about this other stuff. We have a whole bunch of holidays that point to Mars and war. I don't know if you guys have been outside, but war is kind of a thing that's happening on Earth right now. You know, um, some of those world leaders out there are pretty bloodthirsty. They're pretty freaked out, and they are very dedicated to freaking out everybody else. So on October 10th, from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have a festival called the October Horse, which, as a side note, I think would be an excellent band name. But this is a sacrifice dedicated to Mars. Also on this same day, from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have the Ludi Capitolini. These are games that are dedicated to basically the spirit of nationalism, is probably the nicest way to put it. The Romans had a lot of these games that were Ludi, means games. The Romans had a lot of these games that were dedicated to the idea of the spirit of the country, the spirit of Rome, and keeping spirits up and keeping things very dedicated to protecting Rome and celebrating the idea of Rome. I don't know if this sounds familiar if you've ever been to America, but it's a thing. Yeah, so so there's a lot of this stuff. October 12th, we have from our Gnostic friends and ancestors the Knights Templar Remembrance Day. And on October 14th, we have Armillastrium from our Roman friends and ancestors. And this is a ritual, absolutely, once again, dedicated to honoring Mars, the god of war. But this is a day where weapons were ritually purified and then stored for winter, garlanded with flowers. The trumpets would be played as a part of the purification rites. And we have other holidays dedicated specifically to these trumpets, even, kind of a big deal. So there's a couple of different things happening through this week that are sort of dedicated to Mars and the god of war, but also sort of like the dialing down or the dialing back of that energy. So let's hope that that also kind of bleeds through, right? And we get a little bit of that energy happening here on planet Earth. Okay, now this brings me to an interesting collection of holidays. So from our Greek friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of the Heroines on October 9th. Also October 9th, we have the Dies Natalis for a temple to the Dies Penates from our Roman friends and ancestors. And the heroines might literally be like the saviors of stuff. We don't have a lot of information about this one. There is another feast dedicated to the heroines earlier in the year. Could be the same beings, might not be, not sure. But at that time, this is the women of the area, basically female spirits, female entities. The Dies Natalis for the temple of Di Penates from our Roman friends and ancestors. This again is dedicated to the household spirits, or the spirits of the house. And if you've studied Roman culture at all, they basically saw spirits in everything, in their fork, in the table, in the ground that they walked on, in the frame of the doorway itself, like not just the doorway, but the literal wood that framed the doorway. Like everything had a spirit. And so this is a festival dedicated to the spirits of the house itself. Now, if we move further into the week, we have on, digging through my notes as usual. Oh yes, here we are. From our Norse friends and ancestors, October 14th through 28th, the kickoff of Winter Nights or Vetterblot. Now, this festival is dedicated to two groups of entities. Well, one entity and then a group of entities. One, it's dedicated to Freyr, and we'll talk about him in just a second, but it's also dedicated to the Disir. And the Disir were female spirits. And they were female spirits of a place, of a house, of a land, of a farm, of a field, of a forest, of a whatever. They are depicted in a myriad of different ways. They are depicted as helpers to the gods, their own entities in their own right. The Valkyrie, for example, are a type of Dizir. And the word really just means women, spirit women, magical entities that identified as female or femmes. Um, Anything along those lines. And some of the Dizir were cool and really helpful and friendly, and some of the Dizir were a little spookier and weirder. Um, but we have this energy kind of running throughout this week, and I really feel like they are sort of an extension of this idea of goddess as wisdom, goddess as knowledge, goddess as understanding of a moment, a place, a time, an event, that kind of thing. I think it's really an interesting concept to think of something like the harvest, for example, right? We have the literal world event that is the harvest, as in the physical crops themselves, the people who are harvesting them, the tools that they're using, the baskets, the scythe, all of that stuff, right? But then there's the event itself, the moment, right? The smell in the air, the turn of the sunlight as the sun begins to get lower and lower in the sky, all of that type of stuff. And kind of recognizing that all of the moments around us have a spirit in and of themselves. I don't know. I might be going really weird there, but it just is really straightforward and strong to me, and very obvious to me that there is like this idea of sort of worshiping the time, worshiping the place. Maybe not even worshiping. That might not even be the right word here, but acknowledging it, acknowledging that there is an energy, an essence, a spirit to whatever it is that's happening as summer literally transforms into fall, and fall transforms into ultimately winter. I think that's all sort of bound up in these holy moments. And so this week is sort of focusing on a lot of that stuff. Okay. Coming back around to the fact that there's a lot of Mars stuff happening this week. Cool, great, lovely. But we also have on October 13th, Discordia, which is a day dedicated to the goddess Eris. Now, Eris is the twin sister of Aries. Aries, of course, is Mars. So Eris is the twin sister of the god Mars. So, very interesting that we have all of these holidays in this week dedicated to Mars, and then very quietly off to the side, we also have this holiday dedicated to Eris. Now, where Mars or Aries represents war in terms of, nicely organized battalions of soldiers on the field and glittering suits of armor and impressive weaponry, that face of war, Eris, is the face of war that is destruction, chaos, pain, the vulgarity of war. The myth of Eris is really potent, in my opinion, and kicked off a pretty major historical event. The gods, the Olympic gods in Greece, decided that they were going to have a giant, big, fancy dinner. Food, dancing girls, the whole nine. And they decide they don't want to invite Eris because, of course, Eris represents chaos. They don't want any chaos. They just want to have things nice. Very Libra season, isn't it? Right? I don't want to deal with the parts that are messy. I just want everybody to look cute and be polite and play nice. And Eris, of course, at some point finds out that they're having this dinner and finds out that she's not invited. She's not welcome at all. And so she commissions a solid gold apple. And on the side of the apple, she etches the word Kallisti, which means, in Greek, for the prettiest one. And then she very quietly sidles up to the great dining hall where all the gods and goddesses are assembled, boozing away and chowing down and having a fine time. And she rolls this golden apple into the center of the party and walks away. Calamity ensues as all of the gods and goddesses begin to argue over who this apple is meant for, because it says for the prettiest one, for the best, right? For the most. And all of them are like, well, clearly that's me. Obviously it's me. This argument wipes out the dinner, spills out into, general business, and ultimately results in the Trojan War, right? you know, I'm just saying, like, sometimes the symbolism is a little too on the nose. So, um, the meaning that I take away from this, one, war is hell, but also that even here in Libra season, when we would like things to be nice and for everybody to play nice and for things to be pretty and just sweep our troubles under the rug, the more that we do that, the more out of hand shit gets, the more weird stuff gets. And instead, we need to be honoring our personal wisdom. We need to be honoring the spirit of the times that we are in and the place where we are. And that includes the difficult elements too. That includes the unsavory parts. Um, Something I will say about this holiday and about this time period in particular, as we, if we were here with me last week, we talked a lot about, sort of getting right with ourselves and getting right with the people that are around us, forgiving people, apologizing for things, because we are heading into the dark and it is chaotic, right? It's the laws of nature break down as we move through fall and into winter. The things that we have come to expect from the natural world don't work anymore. The things that we've come to expect from the people around us sometimes aren't there anymore. And so something I will say about this holiday and this time of year is this: make room for chaos, or chaos will make its room. Expect the unexpected, right? But truly embracing that there are always going to be things beyond your control. And what can you do to take care of yourself and take care of your loved ones and take care of your community members, knowing that there's always going to be stuff that's beyond your control. There's always going to be chaos in the mix of things. Can we make room for those chaotic elements before they become destructive, before they become virulent? That stuff. So I think that, no, I was like, that's it for the holy days. No, it's not. There's a few more things. um, a couple of the other things that are happening, as I mentioned, back on October 9th, we have from our Hindu friends and ancestors, Sharad Purnima. And one of the things that marks is the end of the monsoon season. Um, and also in this week, we have our Winter Nights slash Vetterblot, as I said, dedicated to the Dizir, but also dedicated to the god Freyr. Now, Freyr is a god of abundance and the harvest. So, hello, perfect timing. But also um, a god that oversees some amounts of weather stuff and often is sailing on a ship. We have the heliacal rising of the. I have so many notes. I apologize. I really should get my shit together. On October 15th, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Foramen, which is the keel of the ship. Very nice. October 14th, from our Yoruba friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of Oya. This is another festival that connects to a whole bunch of this stuff because, of course, Oya is an Orisha of the winds, lightning, violent storms, death, and rebirth. So her work is absolutely speaking to a lot of this stuff that's happening in this time period. And last but not least, October 10th, We have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Sagittarius, which is a word from Latin for corn crop, thus meaning a reaper or a harvester, but also a type of guard or protector or overseer of all of this stuff. So you can see how a lot of these holidays all kind of thread into each other. There was one other holiday that I'm losing here. Unfortunately, I'm missing my notes on, but it really has a lot to do with all of the pieces of iron being put down for the day or for the time. Um, and iron, of course, is connected to Mars. Apologize that I can't find exactly what day that is. I'm like clicking frantically through my notes. I'm like, where? I'm not going to find it. Maybe I'll include it on the notes in my Patreon post. Sorry, guys. Just know that it's happening. Something's happening here with iron, and don't touch it, which makes sense because we are putting our weapons down. We're sort of putting our Martian energies to rest in all of this stuff. So, a mix of really interesting symbolism here, but a really potent mix of honoring spirits of place, honoring spirits of events and moments and times, honoring personal wisdom, um, and honoring chaos, honoring the destructive forces that are in the world and that are growing stronger. And I mean that in a scary way, but I mean that in a not so scary way too. Now, I don't honor war. I don't honor the bloodthirsty world leaders around our planet that are rattling their sabers at each other and scaring the shit out of everybody and, happily killing thousands of people with their greed and their arrogance. But I do need to make room in my life for those events. I can't ignore them. I do need to make room in my psychology and my emotional world for those events because I can't ignore them. But I also can honor literally the spirit of chaos in the sense of saying, you're always going to be here. And as we move closer to winter, we're coming into your season where the natural order of things, the laws of nature begin to break down and to undo themselves. So, in whatever ways, we have lots of holidays in this season that are sort of helping us get right with each other and also make room for the stuff that is frightening or destabilizing and unknowable. It's just witchcraft, people. We've got this. Okay, before we get into the astrology, this podcast is so unhinged and chaotic. But hey, it's the day of chaos this week, so there you go. I'm on brand. One, I found my notes where the iron thing is. It's within the history of the god Freyr. Freyr, who is depicted riding around in a chariot pulled by boars with a massive erect dong. So enjoy that image. When Freyr would come to town to hang out, when the chariot reached a village or a town, the people laid down their arms and every iron object and enjoyed a period of peace and joyful festivities, reveling in the deity's kind presence. Those notes coming from NorseMythology.org, Norse mythology for smart people, which I'll assume they meant me, you, and everybody else. Their entry on Freyr is really fun and well researched. But yeah, so that's that. But anytime any sources make a point to talk about iron specifically, I always pay close attention to that because it is always connected to uh, a god of war, a god of weaponry, a god, something having to do with Mars, something to have to do with Aries. And in this, it's about putting down our weapons and going and being peaceful. Right? Like they make a note of that specifically. Like, hey, we're going to stop fighting right now, right? We're not just talking about iron objects as in whatever, but it's like connected to that idea of peace and war. So, that. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to mention before we get into the astrology is also in this week we have, for folks here in America, we have Indigenous Peoples Day, I can't think of any other American holiday that's happening on October 10th. Can you? No. No, there's no other. It's just Indigenous Peoples Day. And then on October 11th, we have Coming Out Day, and this is the global version of Coming Out Day. So, this is a fantastic day for high faggotry, and I hope you will engage in it and support those who are engaging in it around you. Okay, now let us get into the astrology of the week. And our astrology of this week kicks off with uh, our full moon in Aries. It is full at exactly 1:54 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else around the planet. And it will be at 16 degrees and 33 minutes, or 17 degrees, however you work with that, in Aries. And this moon has some tension to it. When we look at the chart of this moon, what we see is that this moon is conjunct Aries. Excuse me, it's conjunct Chiron in Aries, and it is opposed to the sun, which is totally normal for a full moon, but the sun is conjunct Venus, and those cats are both over in Libra. Venus rules Libra. Chiron does not rule Aries, but it is there. It's been there for a long time. It's going to be there for a long time. So there is a really intense tension between uh, our emotional world and our emotional desires around partnership, around diplomacy, a want for harmony, a want for beauty and opulence and luxury and luxuriousness, versus our sort of self-oriented survivalism stuff, and our feelings around our personal wounds, around individualism and our individual identity. And so this whole full moon, we know that full moons are a type of culminating moment within our lunar cycle. We've been building up to this for 2 weeks, but a lot of the stuff we've probably been building up a little bit longer than 2 weeks. And full moons give us a moment to kind of go, oh, okay, here we've arrived at a plateau. We've arrived at a moment where we can sort of surmise our process and look at some results and see where we are in things. In our metaphor that we work with the full moon, this is when the fruit appears on the vine. This is when the plant, our metaphorical plant, has finally produced something. Now, as I say every month, just because the fruit has appeared does not mean that the fruit is ripe. The fruit ripens at the disseminating moon, and we will talk about that in just a couple of days. Well, we'll talk about it here in this podcast, but it's going to happen in a couple of days. And so we have a moon that's sort of asking us to dig into where are we in our process around the personal wound of being a warrior, being a warrior on behalf of the downtrodden in the world, but perhaps also the places where we have had to be a warrior on behalf of the downtrodden elements in ourself, especially in the conflict between our individualism and partnerships, or what the group is expecting from us, or what the group seems to need from us. In this particular full moon, there is a sextile to Saturn. And so, there's Saturn is sort of supporting the players in this moon. Saturn is also making a trine to the sun. They're wide by 2 degrees in both directions, but Saturn is sort of here saying, what structures can we put into place around this conversation? What things can we rely on? What things can we build or strengthen in this place? But in the most straightforward way, uh, the full moon in Aries is always asking us to find something meaningful to fight for. In what ways can we turn our swords into plowshares? How can we take our rage? How can we take the most destructive elements of us, Eris, and turn it into something that is constructive and that is fighting for um, betterment for all, betterment for all people, for all beings sort of involved in the conversation. You know, I love working with the book Moon Phase Astrology by Raven Caldera. I don't agree with every single thing that this author says, but I really like this book and I like the concepts that are in this book. And in the chapter or in the portion of the book talking about the full moon in Aries, um, what Raven has to say about this is that this is a lone battle, and it is especially effective if we are fighting with no approval from others, and perhaps even in spite of their disapproval, although deliberately inducing disapproval is missing the point. And I would say that because of this connection to Saturn, deliberately inducing disapproval could have some funky consequences because we have this authority figure that's hanging out off to the side. But that in general, this moon is really asking us to say to ourselves, what am I fighting for? And where is that culmination in my life right now? What is coming to a head? What part of that process can I start to see some results in, or make some determinative decisions around that, but also recognizing the wound with Chiron in the midst of all of this stuff. So ways that we might see this manifest that are kind of funky. We might be feeling super restless and super impatient. We may have misconceptions around what heroism is supposed to look like for us or in the world. We might be a little naive in the way that we approach some of that stuff. And so, what I would say is that some of the most important things, or I guess one of the most important things that we can do on this moon is to slow down, breathe, take some time to think about shit, consider things, um, and to really allow ourselves to feel our emotions, to feel the tension between what I need versus what the group seems to be insisting on, or my partnerships, what they seem to be insisting on. And knowing that, once Saturn gets involved, that's the square between Saturn and Uranus. That's the Saturn squaring the nodes. Energy kind of gets stirred up a little bit here. So I want to be thinking in the background, like, where am I being defensive? Where am I being freaked out? Where am I feeling urgency to solve and to fix? And with the Sun and Venus conjunct in Libra, where do I feel pressure to just play it cool, not rock the boat? Remember all of our boat and ship symbolism that we have this week? Where am I being encouraged by my friends or by my society or just by the parts of me that don't want to be bothered to just be cool, and play it nice and keep it cute and not actually address the problems. So the real tension in this week is around, being authentic with yourself and your people around what you're really experiencing versus just keeping things nice. So tough work, but important work. And something that we need to talk to ourselves about on a regular basis. Okay. With our full moon in Aries, for our lunar body work, we are resting, nourishing, relaxing, supporting, or otherwise restoring the head, the hair, scalp, eyes, and sinuses. Those are the parts of the body that are ruled by Aries. As I say every week, I am not a corpus of the human, or I am not a doctor. I am a corpus. I have checked. I am, in fact. I can't avoid that, apparently. But I am not a doctor or health advisor of the human form. I am a witch. I am a lady yelling on the internet about things. You should absolutely go talk with your trusted health advisor if you are wanting to incorporate any of the information around lunar work for your actual physical body. And we can always work with the metaphor. So what's on your mind, right? What's straining your eyes, right? All of that kind of stuff still applies here. And for our plant body work, we are harvesting, we're doing pest control, disease control, we are plowing, we're weeding, or we're pruning our plants to encourage below ground growth. Of course, we are still in harvest season. So this is a moon where harvesting is a sacred act. And in particular, for a lot of fruits and veg, harvesting is still totally happening. In fact, a lot of stuff isn't even quite ripe yet. We're going to be continuing to harvest throughout the month of October. But for a lot of our grains and flowers and herbs that were really doing their thing in summer and the very beginning of harvest season, like during Lunasa, it's a really fantastic time for harvesting seeds for the next go around things. Aries also the zodiacal start of things. So there's a really potent symbolic metaphor here of going out on this full moon and harvesting seeds for the next whatever it is that's coming for us. I love that. Okay, moving deeper into our lunar week on October 10th, Monday, October 10th, we have Venus in Libra comes into exact opposition with Chiron retrograde in Aries at 14 degrees. And this is just sort of continuing this full moon vibe of this tension between me versus us, or me versus them. It might be some of that stuff. Myself versus the collective or the world. And where do I feel tension around that? And where is it right for me to lean in on that tension and work with it? And where is it right for me to pull back and take some time for myself? And you know, engage in some self-care routines, take a hot bubble bath, all of that good stuff. Where have I been attending to the group or the partnership, and where do I need to pull back and deal with my own shit, basically? On this same day, we have Mercury heading into Libra. And so our thoughts, no matter what, are going to be on the partnership, on the collective, on the group or the groups that we are a part of. And also note that Libra doesn't just oversee partnerships, it oversees contracts and legal obligations and things like that. So Mercury heading back into Libra, remember this is where it stationed retrograde, and it retrograded back into Virgo, and then it's stationed direct, and now it's leaving Virgo and coming back into Libra again. So there may be some stuff that comes up here that is connected to Mercury business from a few weeks ago. So just kind of keep your eye open here. Even though the planet is in direct motion, I would just really recommend take a minute, slow down in traffic, slow down when you're talking, slow down when you're thinking about things, read the fine print, ask someone else to overlook the contract before you sign it. Just because we're rolling back over this ground where we were retrograde just a couple weeks ago. So just to be extra careful there. Okay. Tuesday, the 11th, we have the sun in Libra trine Saturn retrograde in Aquarius at 18 degrees. And we also have later in the day / the next day for everybody else around the planet, Mars in Gemini square Neptune retrograde in Pisces at 23 degrees. Now, I'm going to talk about this first. I'll come back to the sun thing in just a second. Mars square Neptune, not great, not super fun. How can this manifest? Feeling tired, feeling hopeless, forgetting to care for your body. When we have difficult transits to or from the planet Neptune, it can get us into a place where we sort of disassociate a little bit. And, as I like to say here on the podcast, we can all have a little disassociation for a treat every now and then, but we can't use that as the modus operandi, right? We do need to actually come back and poop and take a shower and have a meal and like drink some water and deal with it. Um, so this is a day where we might just get super duper bogged down. Mars is our vitality, it's our life force, it's our vive, right? In the joie de vivre, it's the vive part. And Neptune can really suppress that stuff. It can really kind of like lay it out. So after this full moon, and whatever work gets brought up for you, whatever tension, whatever energies get brought up for you with this full moon, by Tuesday, you might be like, I am fully running on fumes. I have been raw dogging life and I am over it. And I am going to go sleep for 12 hours and eat a popsicle. And I don't want to talk to nobody. Please leave me alone. All I'm going to say to that is eat more than one popsicle. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. Drink a glass of water, have a muffin, get a little protein in the mix, get a couple carbs in the mix. That's it. That's literally all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Do whatever you can to remember to attend to your body on this day. If you're working, if you're going to school on this day, try to get yourself to pack a little snack in your bag to make sure that you've got an extra energy packet with you, an extra bottle of mana, an extra bottle of, hit points, whatever your vocabulary is that you like to use here, a healing potion, whatever makes sense for you. It might only be a 1d8, but it's better than nothing. Okay. That's what I'm saying here. Okay. So now I want to come back to this Sun trine Saturn thing. Saturn. Oh no, except trines from Saturn, especially with planets like the Sun, Venus, sometimes Mercury, can actually be really constructive if we're in a place to engage them, right? We have this Mars Neptune square off to the side, so we may not be in a place to engage it, and that's okay. But if we are in a place to engage it, when the Sun is trine Saturn, it's this really fantastic time that lends us an opportunity to really dig into the work that needs to get done. It's not powerhouse energy, it's determined energy. It's consistent, long haul kind of energy. Where Mars is like, I'll race you to the finish. Saturn is like, no, I'm not racing anybody, but I will finish. And and it will be done. Um, so so if we can get out of our feelings a little bit, and we may not be able to, that's fine. But if we can, this transit could really be an assistant to us in terms of helping us get a little perspective on what are we doing, what needs to get done, what is stuff that we can put off to the side, how do we want to order the rest of our week, what structures do we need to put into place for short-term goals, or if we're feeling it, even medium and long-term goals. Really, really assisting. And here is what else I will say about that is that we are actually going to have a couple more relatively helpful sun transits over the next couple of weeks. Now, caveat, right? It can't all be lovely all the time, anytime, right? I was going to say, it can't be lovely all the time. It can't be lovely hardly any of the time these days, seems like. We're still going to have some funky astrology. And we are headed towards a solar eclipse, right? We just had our full moon, so the moon energy is waning for the next 2 weeks. So this isn't a time to like kick off your brand new project. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that we're going to have some solar transits throughout the next couple of weeks that are going to help a little bit, that are going to be a little boost of energy in the face of some of this other funky stuff that's going on. And if we are of a mind, if we can come out of our shells a little bit, or come out of our feelings a little bit in healthy ways, we might actually get a lot of stuff accomplished over the next couple of weeks with these solar transits. Uh, if nothing else, they are a real assistant to help us focus on and get clear around long-term plans. And that also is what's up with Sun trine Saturn, is like, even if I'm not getting stuff done today, I might be able to get really clear in like a progressive and encouraging way around long-term plans. And that's awesome. That's fantastic. I love that. Okay, moving on. Um, to Wednesday the 12th, just after midnight Pacific Standard Time, we have Mercury in Libra oppose Jupiter retrograde in Aries at 1 degree. So this is the third and final transit for now, anyways, between these two, in terms of Mercury's, ultimate retrograde cycle that it's in currently. So again, as I was saying, just a couple days before, here as well, think back to around September 2nd and around September 17th, 18, 19. um, and see if there was some events that happened there, some business that kind of got opened up but hasn't been settled yet. This might be a day where you start to reach a conclusion, or the next chapter of that conversation comes up, or you get another piece of information that fills in some blanks, something along those times. Now, that said, it's an opposition. So, what I want you to watch out for is gossip, misinformation, straight up lies, and disinformation, um, and hidden or secret information sort of coming up to the surface or suddenly being revealed. And again, same thing as I was saying at the beginning of the week, have a friend double check it, take your time, go slow, think things through, and be very careful on this day what you say and what you put into writing. I want you to just take a minute and think about it before you commit it to being said or sending it in a text or whatever. Ask yourself, do I need to say this right now or can I wait? I feel like the better attitude on this day is not to talk, but to investigate, not to dispense information, but to try to pull in information, knowing that some mix, some portion, some percentage of the information that you're pulling in might not be valid information, might not be trustable information, might not be reliable information. Trustable, is that even a word? Whatever. See, Mercury opposed Jupiter. Who knows what I'm talking about right now? But I feel like this is a day that's way better to ask for information than it is to be the dispenser of words and information, because stuff is funky. It's still funky, right? Even with some of these transits being helpful, funky. Okay. Then that brings us to Thursday the 13th, where we have our disseminating moon in Gemini, um, at 5 degrees, 6 degrees approximately, somewhere in there. And with our disseminating moon in Gemini, the very best things that we can do around this time are, interestingly enough, reading and comparing different writings from different people, especially if they have different views on the same subject. So we are comparing and contrasting information from different sources. We're not investing necessarily in any of this information. We're just gathering the information and comparing and contrasting and considering it. It's a great time for uh, book discussions or intelligent research. Side note: Wednesday the 12th, that's Tarot Circle. We'll be giving my lecture on the Tower card. So if you want to come do some research on tarot, gonna be good for you. Um, but it's also a really fantastic time to do some writing, and I would say writing for yourself, not necessarily writing for the people, or for the masses. And the other thing that's happened, actually, let me say this too, to give you your information on that. When we have our waning moon in Gemini for our lunar body work, we're resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, restoring the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, arms, hands, and armpits. So, yes, the mani pedi is a holy act on this day. Yes, waxing your armpits if you're into that. I'm a hairy beast, but all of that stuff, holy acts. For our plant body work, we are again harvesting, pest control, disease control, weeding, plowing, or pruning to encourage below ground growth. So, this is another day where doing harvest work is going to be a holy act. And then our astrology, the other astrology of this day, very late in the day / the next day for everybody else around the planet. Um, Venus in Libra trine Saturn retrograde in Aquarius at 18 degrees. This is a really fantastic day to get grounded in your feelings, to think about what your values are, what are you valuing in the world, and where are you putting that energy in the world? How are you manifesting that or embodying it? And check your budget, babes. Get your money right. Check your balance, your checkbook. You might look through at all the things that you are subscribed to. You might, except for me, stay subscribed to me. But truly, and even if it isn't about saving money or spending less money, it can also be about who am I spending my money with, right? Do you have an Amazon Prime? Stop that. And I'm not saying don't buy stuff. I'm just saying think about who you're buying your stuff from, right? That it's a really, really good day to examine that kind of stuff. Friday the 14th, we have no astrology. Saturday the 15th, the moon moves into Cancer. And this is a fantastic time for doing any and all types of magic, period, the end. Especially any kind of contraction magic, protection magic, binding magic, reducing magic, any magic that is pushing away or ending or eradicating or soothing or calming down. Very, very, very potent with our moon in Cancer. And then Sunday, the 16th, we have no astrology. So that's our astrology for the week. Okay, so now let's talk about some focus tools to help us work with all of this stuff that's coming at us this week. First off, let's talk about tarot. And our tarot card for this week is the Four of Swords. This, in some magical traditions, is connected to Jupiter in Libra. Last week we were working with the Three of Swords, and that is connected to the idea of Saturn in Libra. Now we've moved into Jupiter in Libra. Now, Jupiter is not currently in Libra. Jupiter is in Aries. Or Pisces, excuse me, Jupiter's in Pisces. But esoterically, we can work with this idea. So what I'm working with is the Smith-Waite Tarot deck, and I'm looking at this image of the Four of Swords. And in this image, we have 3 swords hanging on the wall, and we have a 4th sword lying horizontal on the side of some kind of a structure, a table, a bed, maybe it's an altar, I don't know. It looks like we're inside of a building because we have a stained glass window. And we have this being, a person, that is laying down on top of the altar or this table or whatever it is. And all of that stuff is one color. So we might be looking at a sculpture, right? We might be looking at a statue of a person. And a lot of folks take this to be like a mausoleum or a tomb. But the person that's laying down has their hands together in like a point over their chest or their upper stomach. And this is a yoga asana. This is the death pose. And so this is an asana that helps us rest like the dead, but we are not dead. And so what is this card encouraging for us? What's it talking about? Well, in the Suit of Swords, we are really struggling with our thoughts and the way that our mind and our intellect moves through the world, how it acquires information, what it does with that information, how it processes it, how it internalizes it. And then ultimately, we are wrangling with the stuff that we end up doing in the world, the things that we believe in, the stuff that we tell other people, the stuff we tell ourselves, based on how we ended up processing that information. And, what have I said about this week with our astrology? We have a lot of interesting information coming at us this week that we want to be very careful with. And we want to be very careful with how or if we are dispensing any of this information. I think this Four of Swords card is here to assist us to say, be cool. Just chill out. Keep your mouth shut, Take a walk around the block, as I often say here on the podcast. You can always excuse yourself and go put yourself in timeout. This is absolutely a card of putting yourself in timeout, thinking about things and not speaking. But also, this card is just a straight up reference for me to meditation, and meditation as a means of soothing the mind and cooling the mind. Um, we have a lot of stressors in our world right now. I don't think I need to tell you that, but I'm going to say it anyways. And the Four of Swords, for me, when it comes up in a reading, is really, in my opinion, the universe sort of telling us, lay your burden down for a second, turn your brain off for a minute, and just cruise for a little while. You've been thinking real hard. You've been wrangling all the thoughts. You've been trying to, manage every expectation and every outcome and think of every possible, oh my God, I need more information. And the Four of Swords is like, no, that is not the approach here. More information is not going to help. Dispensing information to other people right now is also not going to help. Grounding yourself, doing some deep breathing, and coming into a place of stillness to give your mind a break is going to help. When we think about fours in tarot, this is a card of manifestation. And so, what is that, right? Isn't me talking manifesting my thoughts? Isn't me conveying information to other people manifesting my thoughts? Maybe. But for the brain to truly come into its place, the body kind of has to come into stillness. And that means we're not talking. We're not racing around connecting with people and socializing and conveying information. We're actually in a place of stillness so that the mind can come into wholeness and just be. Just that's it. That's literally it. So for me, I think that the Four of Swords is here this week with fantastic timing to say, hey, chill out, take a nap, go do some meditation, breathe deeply, and pick your words very, very wisely this week. Be careful about what you say, be careful about what you believe, and stay true to the fundamentals of what you know is the truth, because you've already proved to yourself what is the truth. And that's it. Pretty straightforward. I really don't have a whole lot else to say about this card. Pretty straightforward. Okay. So in terms of magic that we can do this week and ritual and such, note that we are starting this week with a full moon, and then we are moving into our waning moon stuff. When the moon is passing through Cancer in particular, that is going to be a fantastic time for us to do purification of the self, purification of the home, which is in alignment with our Mabon or fall equinox magic anyways. So, especially with the moon kicking off in Aries, this might be a really great time to do some energetic cleansing and emptying out this week. It might be a really fantastic time to empty out energy from your house, your lands, whatever, and or to do some protection magic that is oriented to pushing out or pushing away, keeping back or ending things, right? With our waning moon. Protection stuff, Aries, defensiveness or defenses, Aries, Cancer, just sort of enhancing anything that we're doing magically. But because it's a waning moon in Cancer, doing magic that is oriented to energy on its way out, energy going away, leaving, ending, diminishing, anything along those lines. Whatever that means for you, you know what that means for you. Other things that we might do this week as ritual acts or spell crafting devices are lighting lamps, lighting candles. I have a couple of things in my house that need new bulbs, so I will be going around this week and changing out the bulbs in those things. taking some moments for meditation and solitude, right? That's absolutely within our Mabon work that we're doing. So this is a really great work for that. Self-care, atoning, and collecting seeds, all making lots of sense for us here. Working with an image of the setting sun could be really, really potent for you this week. And then looking through our helpers, in terms of like food and drink and plant helpers, anything that's in season is going to be super, super appropriate. Anything that's in season, whatever is in season in your area, eat local. It's the best possible thing you could do. If you want to work with stones, the crystals that I think could be really helpful for us this week are bloodstone, rainbow obsidian, mahogany obsidian, and fire opals. Fire opals can be a little expensive. Those other three are not so hard to find. Um, and then making sure that we're wearing or working with colors like deep red, burnt orange, dark yellow, or gold could also be really invigorating or revitalizing for us, or supportive in some way to kind of dial us into the vibes of the season, dial us into that Mars Aries energy, um, with our full moon in Aries, and, stuff like that. Okay. Coming back through the week for our roundup, we have October 9th, our full moon in Aries at 1:54 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else, at 16 degrees of Aries. On Monday the 10th, we have Venus in Libra oppose Chiron retrograde in Aries at 14 degrees, and we have Mercury moving into Libra. Oh, we also have the moon moving into Taurus on that day. I think I forgot to mention that. Sorry. Tuesday, the 11th, we have the Sun in Libra trine Saturn retrograde in Aquarius at 18 degrees. We also have Mars in Gemini square Neptune retrograde in Pisces at 23 degrees. Wednesday, the 12th, we have Mercury in Libra opposing Jupiter retrograde in Aries at 1 degree. And we have the moon moving into Gemini. And then Thursday, the 13th, we have our disseminating moon in Gemini at 5 degrees. We have Venus in Libra trine Saturn retrograde in Aquarius at 18 degrees. Friday, the 14th, we got nothing. Saturday, the 15th, we have the moon moving into Cancer. And Sunday, the 16th, moon is still in Cancer. And next week, our waning half moon is going to be in Cancer. And so here we are moving from Aries into Cancer. These are still cardinal signs. So we are still in that energy of kicking off fall, waking up fall, beginning fall. But soon we are going to move into moons that are all in fixed signs. All the major moon degrees are going to be all in fixed signs. And that will be fixing us into the center of the season of fall and really grounding us into the deep heart of our fall work. All right, my friends, take care of yourselves out there. Drink some fucking water. Don't eat as much salt as I am, but, enjoy your life. Take care of yourself. Do what you need to do to ground yourself in the chaos and the tumultuous energy of the times. Slow down, take a breath. As I always say, you can put yourself in time out, take a walk around the block, decline an invitation. Do what you need to do to keep it right for yourself. I encourage you in whatever ways are healthy for you to choose authenticity over playing nice. But also, I encourage you to pick your battles wisely and don't waste your energy on fools that don't deserve your time. Just witchcraft. That's it. All right, my friends. That's your podcast for the week. I hope I see you at some of our cool events that we have coming up here. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, check out Something Cryptid This Way Comes on Instagram to see the amazing creations that we've all been working on throughout this month. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to jump in. You don't have to start at the beginning. It's okay if you weren't there for the beginning. Don't worry about it. I'm excited to see what bizarre creations come from your twisted minds. All right, that's enough of that. That's it, my heathens. Take care of yourselves out there. Blessed be.